Welcome back, everybody. John Arvos is here. I have multiple microphones shockingly plugged in and ready to go. Let me mirror my image there. Boom. Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome all. This is 5 o'clock Wednesday. Well, 5 o'clock Chicago time on Wednesday. Boom. Got everything set up. Good to see everybody. Let me turn off my ringer. That's always a nice thing to do. We are here to talk Ukraine and the latest on today, the anniversary of the Russian invasion. Oop, dog making noises. Anniversary of the invasion and Ukrainian Independence Day. Both. Well, in Ukraine, now is the next day, but nonetheless, the 24th of August. As always, lots of news. Well, not as always, but as usual, lots of news to talk about here. Having problems streaming to Twitch. That's not good. Oh, well, Twitchers, not sure what to tell you. It says it's having a problem streaming to you, so we'll see what happens. Hello, Tennessee. Oh, boy. Anyway, guys, as always, maybe if you want to just sort of say where you're all from, I'm going to start the news pretty soon, but nonetheless, I think it's kind of nice just to introduce yourselves to people. And I'm going to start, actually, while you're doing that, I'm just going to start. So you can keep introducing yourselves while I'm talking. So as usual, I'm going to do about 20 minutes of news, maybe 25 today, we'll see, of news, and then we'll do questions, discussion, whatever. Thank you, Mike Webb, for that. As the talk goes on, sometimes we veer off into a discussion anyway in the middle of my presentations, and that's cool too. We'll just do whatever comes along. As always on TikTok, if you want to submit questions, you can go to my profile. There's a Q&A button. Hopefully you can use it. TikTok's been glitchy lately. For you guys, you can use, obviously, the button at the bottom of the screen. YouTubers can also use the super chat function. And you guys, I, of course, appreciate the gifts you also do on TikTok. And I will try to do a shout out when I see them. I don't always see them, but I usually see them. So let me go and boom, boom, boom. And the Russians, I see, have already joined us on TikTok. How exciting. All right, guys. So today is the 6-month anniversary of the Russian invasion. It is also Ukrainian Independence Day. There have been a lot of analyses. Actually, there's a really good article in the Washington Post today. I'm not sure how they do it. I subscribe, but maybe you get 10 free articles. I'm not sure. But it's looking at the invasion. And it's really interesting, like literally sort of the blow by blow, what was going on with Zelensky and everything else. Anyway, very interesting read. Just if you're that geeky on the substance, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. But overall, people have been doing sort of obviously a retrospective, but looking at how well has Russia fared? And I mean, we know Russia hasn't done terribly well because they haven't won, right? We know when the war started, Russia was going to come in within 3 days. They thought they were going to win. They were going to either kill Zelensky, capture him, install a puppet regime. In other words, a fake leader to take over as president who Russia would control, and the war would be over in 3 days. Didn't work out that way. We're now in the 6th month of the 3-day war. And the Russians got pushed back from Kiev, so they didn't capture Kiev. Then the Russians were going after Kharkiv, the second largest city in the northeast. They were going to take that. They couldn't take it. The Ukrainians pushed them back. Now, not even now, the last couple months, the goal was going to be that the Russians were going to take over eastern Ukraine. A larger region called Donbass, which comprises 2 oblasts, 2 regions, one called Luhansk in the far east of Ukraine, and one called Donetsk, which is one over to the west, right? So 2 provinces right next to each other. Well, it's been now several months. For the last 2 months, there's been literally no movement at all. I mean, a couple miles movement, that's it, from Russian forces in the last 2 months. So that goal hasn't been going very well. And I just jotted down some things here from reading a number of different folks, just to give you a sense of kind of how much this has blown up in Russia's face, okay? Look at what this war has now caused. It has caused NATO to expand. We now have Finland and Sweden, not only 2 countries joining NATO, right? When Putin was supposedly all worried about NATO getting closer and closer to Russia, we've got 2 additional countries joining NATO, but they're 2 historically neutral countries. So it's even worse in that sense that Putin was able to cause this, right? Pushing Ukraine into the arms of NATO, clearly Putin claimed that was one of his concerns, that Ukraine was getting too close to the EU. They were getting too close to NATO. Well, what did he do? He pushed Ukraine right into our arms. Ukraine is now much closer to NATO. Ukraine is now much closer to the EU, right? All sorts of interconnections now with economics, with military support, which is another big issue. You now have NATO supporting Ukraine to a large degree with military aid. That didn't happen before. And typically, when you are a strong provider of military aid, that usually strengthens the relationship more because it makes you more reliant on each other, at least the person getting the aid more reliant on the people giving the aid. What else? He reinvigorated NATO in the EU. Think about this too. The last big news coming out of the EU before this was Britain leaving, the Brexit, right? Now, all of a sudden, the European Union has a new, raison d'etre to a degree. I would argue NATO even more, right? Because NATO, I mean, let's face it, ever since the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. Oh, all right, that's enough. Hey, really in the middle of this? Get up here. Get up here. My dog is being an absolute biatch to mom's dog. She gets jealous of her when she's around me. So the dogs are now fighting. Today, we may not have ants. I don't know, but we have dogs fighting over me, which is kind of cute, but kind of annoying at the same time. The reinvigorated NATO, I was saying, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of discussion as to what NATO's purpose would be. Then we had September 11th, right? So September 11th, 2001. That was a time that NATO Article 5 was invoked for the first and only time, but also it was sort of a new mission for NATO, focusing more than on terrorism, things like that. Well, all of a sudden, especially after the Trump presidency, when I think, again, people in Trump's orbit were saying, what's the point of NATO, right? Trump was saying, for example, that, he wasn't wrong about this, that NATO wasn't keeping up its promises in terms of the individual countries, the promise of the commitment within NATO to spend at least 2% of your gross domestic product on defense. And a lot of NATO countries weren't doing that. Trump was correct about that, actually. So all of a sudden, now we see a new reason for NATO. And it's the old reason, which is the Russian threat. The Russian threat is real, and it's ongoing, and it's even grown. What else we got here? You've got America getting involved again in a more activist way internationally. Think of that too, okay? Think again about the Trump years. You saw, well, not only did you see Trump kind of poo-pooing the whole idea of, we shouldn't be the world's policeman and this kind of stuff. You also saw Trump put in place the agreement to pull us out of Afghanistan. That was his agreement. Biden implemented it. Didn't implement it terribly well, obviously, but nonetheless, it was Trump's idea. We had Biden coming in and getting us completely out of Iraq as well, right? Or maybe Trump and Biden both. So you had an era of America kind of withdrawing from the world to a degree, but Trump really withdrawing America from the world, okay? Well, what happens now? America, once again, is, not that we weren't, but we are now taking the lead internationally. I would say that Biden clearly got together and I believe coordinated, probably the Brits were the number two here in terms of coordinating and corralling support for Ukraine. And that was something that Trump was trying to get us away from. We went back to not only becoming, but I think understanding the role that America can play in the world. As an American, I'll say this. What else I got here? Oh, God. And then you've got Russia being emasculated as a world power. This was really bad. So one of the analyses I saw, oh, good. I'm live on Twitch now. Twitch has been trying to go live for a while. The Twitchers, you're finally here. It says you are live. So Russia emasculated as a world power. One of the analyses I saw said, had Putin not invaded Ukraine, Russia basically would have gotten away with this myth of it being, right, the second greatest army in the world after the American army, and don't mess with the Russian military, beyond nuclear weapons, right? Ooh, very scary people. Putin blew that all up. Putin showed that it was, what do they call it, a Potemkin army or whatever, but basically that it's so much graft, so much corruption. Actually, I remember the analysis I saw. The analysis I saw said it took them back to right when the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. That basically in 1991, Soviet Union collapsed, and the big world experts looked at Russia and said, Russia's totally been destroyed. Soviet Union's collapsed. The military's collapsed. They're not a world power anymore. Then Putin invested for 20 years and billions of dollars. Putin invested 20-year investment in the Russian military to really make it world class again. And then he exposes the fact that it's not world class at all. So, we know Russia hasn't done well, but it's really interesting when you sort of look through each detail at just what Russia has brought on itself. Oh, and one of Putin's other big goals here was to stop Ukraine from becoming some anti-Russian force in the world. And what did he do? He turned Ukraine into a bunch of Russia haters. And this was a country where, in much of the country, Russian was the first language for a lot of Ukrainians. They clearly had their own national identity. They did not see themselves as quasi-Russians or anything, but they were on Russia's border, shared a language. Just like us and the Brits. We share a language, and frankly, it's funny, but I do feel more of a simpatico with other countries with which I share the language, with Australia, with Britain. There's just something about speaking the same language that it plays with you psychologically, where you're like, oh yeah, there's a connection there. Now he's turned the Ukrainians into just Russia haters, and frankly, justified Russia haters. So anyway, bad news. Boris Johnson today did another surprise visit. He is still the British Prime Minister. I actually had to check. I was like, I don't think they've got a new one yet. But Johnson did another surprise visit to Kiev, Ukraine today. It's his third visit. It was a surprise. Zelensky knew, but meaning they surprised the world with this. And he announced another aid package. I think it was like 60 million or something. Mind you, Britain is a lot smaller than America. So, you've got to sort of look at the aid packages countries are offering compared to their own economy sized, right? But so anyway, another big aid package from them. A lot of drones, actually. I believe Johnson offered a lot of, I couldn't tell you the detail, like mini drones, which I'm not really familiar with, but a lot of mini drones. Zelensky, oh yeah, so this was kind of interesting too. Russia did one really bad, nasty attack today. And otherwise, it was kind of an uneventful day. You'll recall that yesterday we heard that the American government was telling Americans, get out of Ukraine, right? Get out of Ukraine. There's going to be massive attacks. The Russians are going to, responding to this Daria Drugina or whatever her name is thing, or Dugina, claim that the Ukrainians blew her up in a car bomb, even though nobody really believes that. And B, because it's Ukrainian Independence Day, and the Russians love to take these holidays and just turn them on their head and basically say, oh, it's your Independence Day? We're going to blow you up. What happened? Not much. It's funny. I had messaged Vlad, my friend in Ukraine, who's done a lot of the fundraising and stuff with us and has helped implement the humanitarian aid. I'm going to read you Vlad's comment. It kind of made me laugh because I wrote him and I was like, okay, Vlad, I've read about a couple things, but I'm not getting the sense that there's a massive attack all over Ukraine, which we were afraid was going to happen. Am I mislead? I said, that was my sense looking at the news. It didn't seem like Armageddon. And he wrote me back and he said, nuclear war not starting today. I'm happy about it. But the point is, other than one story I'm going to tell you, which was really awful, it didn't really come across that they did any more bombing than they normally do. And they do. And it killed, some young children died. Horrific stuff. But we were expecting this to be out of control lunacy Russian bombing today. And they didn't do it. And again, you kind of have to ask yourself why. Thank you, Ellie, for that. And, one of the possibilities is they just don't have the weapons to do it anymore. They've used too many of their missiles. They've used too much of their artillery. The Ukrainians are blowing up their artillery. Why wouldn't Putin blow the bejesus out of Ukraine today on their national day? Why wouldn't he if he could? And that's his MO for doing it. I don't know. So the really bad attack today, there was an attack on a train station in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, killing at least 15 people, at least 50 injured. This was about an hour ago. By the way, I'm seeing people mentioning the buffering again on TikTok. Unstable connection, it's saying. Oh, shit. You know what, guys? Let me try something. I'm going to I hate to do this. Oh, actually, is it not buffering? Because it's claiming unstable connection for me here. And I always forget that sometimes, okay, if it's working fine for you guys, I'm going to leave it. Let's not mess with it then, okay? And we've got 1,000 of you watching. I don't want to screw with it. Okay. All right. Everyone says it's working. Good for the TikTokers. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. So at least 15 people were killed. 50 people were injured. This was about an hour ago from Zelensky. My guess is the number goes up. It was a train station. They were blowing up the train. They were blowing up the station. They were blowing up, the tracks. Just bad news across the board. And this was really the worst attack that we'd seen today, really. I mean, horrible. According to Zelensky, 4 train cars caught fire as a result of the attack. Rescue operations ongoing. The Washington Post, one of the things the Washington Post article that I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast had that I thought was really just kind of beautiful. It had all these little anecdotes about the beginning of the war and like those first couple hours. Listen to this. According to Defense Minister Reznikov, the Ukrainian defense minister, he received a call from his Belarusian counterpart. Remember, the Belarusians are in cahoots with Putin. Okay, they have a dictatorship, Lukashenko, who's like Putin's best friend. And Putin launched the war in part from Belarus, in addition to from parts from Russia. Okay, so the Ukrainian defense minister receives a call from the Belarusian defense minister hours after Russia's full-scale invasion had begun. Reznikov said that the Belarusian minister said he was conveying a message from Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, who demanded that Ukraine sign an act of capitulation, meaning a surrender. Reznikov, the Ukrainian defense minister's response, he said, "I am ready to accept the capitulation from the Russian side," and hung up on him. Which I've got to love that. I mean, it's just more of that Ukrainian chutzpah and backbone that we've seen that's just so... anyway, it's a great article. It's a really interesting article. Like I said, I'm actually was in the middle of reading it when we finally got to 5 o'clock for me to start with you guys. But if there's any more gems, I will show you. Shoigu, so the Russian defense minister, either today or last night, said that he came out. I mean, again, this stuff is just laughable. They're so bad at this. The reason the Russians haven't been doing very well in the war the last couple months, and the reason that they've been fighting for 2 months in the East, which is, remember, their new big goal, and they've not made almost any progress. I mean, literally, I even copied it. Hold on. I'm going to show you this. I copied this image on my phone so I could show you guys. Hold on here. Just to show you in the last 2 months how much, okay. I mean, this is almost funny to even look at. So in the last 2 months, the yellow marking on this map, the yellow marking is how much change there has been in the last 2 months of territory. This is just Eastern Ukraine, mind the way. This is just like half of Ukraine. Look at this map. That's the yellow, the little bit that's along that pink line there. The yellow is what has changed in the last 2 months. That's it. Now for you guys, look at that. So do you see how the yellow is that little part right there, all along between the pink and the blue, basically? That's all that has changed in the last 2 months in terms of changing who's occupying it, so to speak, the Ukrainians or the Russians. Even though Ukraine wants to win the land back, it's pretty huge because, again, Russia had cut back and said, oh, we're going to take Eastern Ukraine and we're going to occupy it and annex it. And now they're stuck. And it's been 2 months of stuck. Good news. Oh, yeah. So Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, says today, you see, you've got to, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but you've got to understand the reason we haven't made much progress is because the Russian military has been very careful about killing civilians. We don't want to kill civilians, so we've slowed down our offensive in order to protect the civilians. And everybody went like, what's the word I'm looking for? Full-bellied laugh on that one. Like, oh, sure. After Bucha and everything else, you didn't want to kill civilians. But what was interesting, though, is some of the defense experts I was reading today took Shoigu, the defense minister's comment, as being the beginnings of an explanation to the Russian people as to why the war isn't going well, which is interesting, right? that basically he's trying to explain to Russians that you have to understand the war isn't going well because we the great Russians care about people, the Ukrainians don't. And it's basically, thank you, Harley. It's potentially a preparation to explain to the Russian citizenry that we've lost this war, but we didn't lose it. We simply have to give up for the sake of not killing civilians. Again, let's see if it gets to that point, but that was what some people were interpreting that as. Several car bombs going off for collaborators. Bad news for Moose and Squirrel here. Well, bad news for Boris and Natasha. Now Moose and Squirrel did the blowing up. So we've talked a lot about collaborators. Collaborators, you may recall, are in essence when you've got a country like Ukraine. Bad guys come in, the Russians come in, they invade, they occupy the country. Collaborators are your own local citizens who basically work with the bad guys. Thank you, user, for that. They work with the bad guys. So they go and they take jobs so Ukrainians taking jobs with the local Russian occupation. Ukrainians helping the local Russian troops. Giving them even locations on where troops are and things. But it's basically your own citizens who are traitors and helping the enemy. Well, there have been lots of Ukrainians basically behind enemy lines blowing up these collaborators for several months now, and they did it again. This one I'll tell you, and then there was 3 other ones. A Russian collaborator was killed by a car bomb in Zaporizhia, which is one of the southern provinces that the Russians are currently occupying. Russian collaborator Ivan Sushko, the Russian-appointed head of the occupied village of Mikhailivka in Zaporizhia Oblast, was killed by a car bomb on August 24th. That's today. Another Russian collaborator, Vladimir Rogov, wrote on his Telegram channel, according to Rogov, an explosive device was placed under the seat of the car. Sushko was taken to the hospital where he died soon after. And in recent days, there have also been high-profile attempts to kill Russian proxy leaders. Russian proxy leaders are basically, once the Russians take over a territory, they say, oh, we're going to put instead of the governor who's there, who's the real Ukrainian governor, we're going to put our own fake guy in charge, right? He's going to be the new leader. Could be a Russian, could be Ukrainian, but he's the new fake guy working for the Russians. Well, the Ukrainians in the last few days have tried to kill 3 high-profile Russian proxy leaders in the towns of Mariupol, Melitopol, and Kherson. I should say the region of Kherson, because the Kherson itself, Kherson, I'm sorry, it could be the city of Kherson, because Kherson is also occupied by the Russians right now. So again, ongoing news about how the Ukrainians are doing a pretty good job fighting back. Another ammunition depot, speaking of which, is on fire in Belgorod, Russia. Belgorod is the town that is right across the Ukrainian border. If you get into northeastern Ukraine, you'll see the town of Kharkiv, a Ukrainian town, and Kharkiv is literally 15 miles or so from the Russian border. And you will then go another maybe 20 miles and you will see the Russian town of Belgorod. Well, Belgorod is a main supply point for the Russians, where a lot of ammunition, troops, everything is coming through supplying the Russian war in Ukraine. So the Ukrainians have been doing a very good job blowing up the ammunition storage, they blew up an oil depot, oil storage at the beginning of the war. Thank you, Heather, for that. That was sweet of you. Oil storage at the beginning of the war. And now another ammunition depot is on fire. The governor claimed it was a lens effect. Now, I'm not familiar. I wanted to Google this. I don't know if he means the sunlight got too hot and somehow lit it on fire. The defense guy said that's absolute BS. Ammunition doesn't blow up just because it's sitting in the sun. You basically need either a detonation near ammunition or you need a high temperature fire, a high burning fire to set ammunition off. But it's not, okay, weather, exactly. It's not just like, the weather was kind of hot today and our ammunition blew up. But, this was another good piece of news today. Erdogan. So Erdogan, who's the president of Turkey, a difficult man, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys, you've been following this. You know that the Turks have traditionally been friends with the Russians. So, but they're members of NATO. So they've been, supportive of the Ukrainians, but they're not agreeing to the sanctions. So they still be continuing to sell things to Russia. Well, Erdogan said today that Crimea must be returned to Ukraine. And his representative said the return of Crimea is a basis for any dialogue between Russia and Ukraine. Now, you'll recall, if you look at the map of Ukraine, Crimea is that peninsula sticking off the bottom that the Russians came and stole in 2014 when the Russians invaded back then. They stole the peninsula, they annexed it, they claim now it's part of Russia. It's not part of Russia, it's still Ukraine, but the Russians are currently occupying it. The fact that Erdogan is saying that, and that he's, he and the Hungarian, what's his face? I'm already spacing out, that idiot in Hungary. I'm tired. I took a nap today, which is great. I feel better, but it leaves you with that like foggy headache. Oh, you know who I mean. Hungary. The idiot in Hungary. Short name, Urban. Urban and Erdogan are pretty much the best friends of Putin and NATO. So for Erdogan to say that you got to give Crimea back, and giving back Crimea is going to be the basis for any discussion between Ukraine and Russia, when Erdogan, Turkey, has been hosting the negotiations to date. I mean, they're not having any now, but the negotiations they had, the Turks were pretty much hosting and facilitating. So Turkey, as the impartial power, is now taking really a harder line in terms of calling for Crimea to be returned. That's good. It also shows, once again, Putin's power is starting to wane even more, that the Turks are now a little less interested in helping him. The U.S. announced the details of its aid package, $3 billion with a B dollars to Ukraine. 6 NASAMS, NASAMS. These are coordinated. Oh God, what do they call them? It's basically a coordinated surface-to-air missiles that are take out drones, take out cruise missiles, take out aircrafts, helicopters. The range, I believe, is something like 25 kilometers, so like 15 miles. It goes about, I think it was 12 kilometers up, which might be 8 miles up in the air. But it's this distributed system where you get multiple of them around a city or whatever you're protecting. And it's pretty much impossible for the Russians or anybody, it's a Norwegian system, to take out enough of them to knock out the air defense, because they somehow work all together and they coordinate the systems. Anyway, it's a Norwegian system. The U.S. bought 6 of them for Ukraine and promised them as part of the package today. We also promised 245,000 rounds of 155 millimeter artillery ammunition, 65,000 rounds of 120 millimeter mortar ammunition, 24 counterattack radars, and a number of Vampire counter unmanned aerial systems that, from what I read, these are some kind of little missiles for taking out missiles, basically, is the way it was described. But Vampire, I love the name Vampire. Sorry, Wendy has got a question or a point here. Do you think Turkey saying this could lead to Putin being like, well, aw shucks, since Turkey said it, and give him that out? Sorry, quick sip of water. I don't think it's like Putin is going to say, oh gosh, Turkey looks like they're not being my friend anymore as much. I'm going to just cede the war and go home. I do think it's part of a larger calculus for Turkey that, not Turkey, for Putin, he's got to constantly be juggling how much support he's got and everything else. And clearly Turkey has been shifted further into the Ukraine column now for whatever reason. And Putin's got to consider that moving forward. He's got to consider it as far as the negotiations, as far as a final negotiation, et cetera. So Putin's not gonna just call it a day because of this, but it still is good news. And it's at least going to be part of Putin's calculus that he's having less influence. Thank you, Baby Shoe, for that. What else we got here? So anyway, that was the systems the U.S. sent. The Russia has instructed officials to begin preparing for staged referendums in Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine, meaning Russia wants to hold referendums in parts of Ukraine that it's occupying in order for the citizenry, of course it's going to be fake, but for the citizenry to vote unanimously to become part of Russia. Thank you, Bonnie. And Russia will therefore say, of course, we'll have you become part of Russia. It's all going to be a sham. Russia's done this before. They did it with Crimea. They're total sham elections. Thank you, Vicky, for that. Total sham elections. Nonetheless, they're doing it as a precursor to annexing these territories and claiming, and the territories are the Kharkiv region, even though Kharkiv itself is free. They're looking at the Kharkiv region, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk. In other words, those two provinces out east we talked about that Russia's been trying to get and not having, they got control of one. They're not doing well with the second. Zaporizhia, which is further west, southern Ukraine. Kherson, further west, southern Ukraine, right above Crimea. So that whole swath, Russia's going to try to annex and make part of Russia. British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said today, pretty much reiterating what the U.S. Intelligence had been claiming in terms of Russian deaths and Russian injuries, said that we pretty much accept, he said, well, we do accept the sort of observations of Russian losses to be, if you combine deaths, injuries, and desertions, over 80,000 of their armed forces. So that's 80,000, including deaths, injuries, and desertions. In other words, 80,000 men put out of action, okay? Mind you, they started this war with 150 to 190,000. The number, I saw it go up to like 190 and then down to 160, but 150 to 190,000 Russians starting in the war. 80,000 of them are out of commission. That's a hell of a lot. Even though they try to bring in reinforcements, that's bad. That's 80,000 in 6 months compared to 15,000 they lost in a decade in Afghanistan. I will make one quick point. That's true, but in Afghanistan, I believe it was 14,500 deaths. I do not believe it was injuries and deaths. I believe Afghanistan was 14,500 deaths. Having said that, the U.S. has said that we believe, I quoted this the other day. What was it, guys? It's a minimum of 20,000 deaths. I don't remember if we said we thought the Russians possibly had as many as 30,000. I want to say there was an estimate going as high as 30,000 deaths, I think, but certainly 20,000. Just looking at this because I don't want to go too long. That story I'll skip. I don't think it's too important. Actually, here's a good one. This is from the Institute for the Study of War. So it's unverified, but ISW, which is a big defense think tank in Washington, D.C., very trusted. The fact that they would report on this means they've got some reason to think there's some credibility here. They wouldn't just report it, even saying it's unverified, which they're saying. Okay, so unverifiable sources reported that Axis commanders in Ukraine are reporting directly. So meaning Axis commanders, meaning the Russian and their collaborators fighting in Ukraine, reporting back home to Russia. Okay, are reporting directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin, bypassing both the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov. Now, the Chief of the General Staff is equivalent to the American Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So in other words, the commanders in Ukraine are bypassing the Russian Minister of Defense, and they're bypassing the Russian Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, which is the top military officer in the Russian military, because Putin has lost faith in both of them. So Putin has the commanders contacting him directly for orders. Okay. Let me see if there's a little more here. And actually, I'd be curious, just while I'm saying this, some of you folks who are military folks, because I know some of you are out there, weigh in on that, because I was trying to explain to folks earlier today just how crazy that is and how dangerous it is when you have basically the president become the general and not trusting, trying to micromanage things like that. Let me see, was there more here? Quoted unnamed sources within the Russian general staff stating that Russian Defense Minister Shoigu has lost Putin's trust after the initial phase of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine that failed despite Shoigu's assurances of a swift victory. The sources claim that Putin now bypasses Shoigu and interacts directly with Commander of Central Military District Alexander Lapin, who oversees the central group of forces in Ukraine. Yeah. Oh, now this is interesting. Okay. This is interesting. See, this is part of the reason this is, people were saying that this was, I just saw that Captain Awesome saying this is what happened with Germany in World War II. Yeah, that Hitler was apparently like controlling everything himself. This is why it matters. Listen to this, okay? The sources claim that Putin now bypasses his defense minister and interacts directly with He's going to mention two people. Commander of Central Military District, Alexander Lapin, who oversees the central group of forces in Ukraine, and commander of the Russian Aerospace Forces, Sergei Surovikin, who commands the southern group of forces. Let's be clear on what that is. Putin is now giving orders to the southern forces and the central forces in Ukraine. They are not dealing with a central boss. You've got two different groups of military forces in Ukraine, the Russian forces in the east and the Russian forces in the south. Somebody's got to be coordinating their work because they're each one, let's say it's a commander, it says. Each one has a commander in charge of it, maybe even a general. Rather than reporting to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, so to speak, rather than reporting to the defense secretary to coordinate, they're now reporting to Putin. So Putin is literally being the top general coordinating all the military's activities. It's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely, it's total insanity what people are saying. And it's great. And exactly, he has no military training. He's a former KGB. So he's a spy, and that's great. But being a spy does not mean that you're a great military planner. This is great, though. I mean, again, this is good news because it means not only has the war not been doing well, but and Putin knows it hasn't been doing well. Thank you, Motek Missy, for that. But it also means that things are just going to get worse because it's just doubtful that Putin could command all of this. Because again, he's got to strategize between both sessions. He's got the people in the south, the people in the east, and he's the guy pulling it all together. That's crazy. But perfect. It's great. And oh yeah, this was not a good story out of Russia, but sort of a last little story. You guys have asked me before about what's been going on with dissent in Russia. Thank you, John, for that. Dissent meaning everyday Russians speaking up and protesting the war, and that's really kind of gone by the wayside because Russia has really descended into another, dictatorship. CNN just reported that Russia says the military operation is going according to plan. Works for me. If the plan was to lose, I'm there. Police officers in masks and camouflage on Wednesday stormed the home of Yevgeny Roizman, perhaps the most vocal critic of the war in Ukraine, still freely speaking out inside Russia, and detained him for discrediting the Russian army. Mr. Roizman, a popular former mayor of the city of Yekaterinburg near the Ural Mountains, showed calm defiance as the police led him away, according to video footage from the scene. He told reporters waiting outside his apartment door that he was being investigated for basically one phrase, the invasion of Ukraine. What he means is the fact that he used the phrase, the invasion of Ukraine, is why they're going to throw him in jail. Listen to this. He says, I say this everywhere and will say it now. Referring to his own arrest, he said, well, forget about that. Mr. Roizman now faces 3 years in prison under the censorship law signed by Putin in March that made it a crime to call the war in Ukraine a war or an invasion. I mean, it's how much of a dictatorship it's become, but it's also, if you're outlawing the language you can use, that if you call it an invasion or a war, we're throwing you in jail for 3 years. To me, that just shows how freaking fearful and weak you are. Just how freaking weak you are. Thank you, Flower Lady, for that. All right, that's it for that. The last little thing I'll throw in, we'll do questions now. The last thing I want to throw in is we've been raising money to get our community's name on the side of a howitzer in Ukraine. We've raised $1,800 so far since last night. Thank you, guys. My goal is to get the $5,000. If we get $5,000, we can get our community name on the side of a howitzer, which is, our artillery gun in Ukraine. And they'll do a video of it as well for us going off. And the money then gets donated to this local charity in Ukraine that provides basically, it's not really weapons. It's humanitarian help, so to speak, to the troops. The thing that stuck out in my mind, I remember they had the heat goggle, the night vision goggles, for example, that kind of stuff to the troops. So we're actually raising money to help the Ukrainian troops. But as a thank you, so to speak, we can get the TikTok community, the YouTube, whatever we want to call ourselves, on the side of the howitzer with a message for Russia, which I think would be pretty freaking amazing. I will do the Q&A, but you guys can keep giving if you would. I'm not taking a dime, so I have no problem pushing this because I'm not taking any of the money. You can go to my, well, hold on. For you guys here, I can just copy it on TikTok, on YouTube. All right, YouTubers and Twitcherers and everything else. That's my PayPal, my Venmo, and my Cash App. I'm sending to all of you folks. And for you all, you can go to the link in my profile, the Beacons link, click through. You'll see my PayPal, my Venmo, my Cash App. Or if you want, you could just go to the tips thing in my profile. In my profile on TikTok, there is, hang on, I'll show you. One of the things, people don't really use it much, but going really closely, look at that right there. Tips in red with the little red circle by it. Tips right there. When you click it, you will see people who have given me tips, and you will be able to give a tip. And if you give a tip, 100% of the money comes to me, so to speak. It's not, TikTok doesn't take any of the money. So if you would, like I said, I want to keep pushing this for a few more days. If we can't get the 5,000, we'll still get one of the lesser ones. We can buy several of the, we can buy several artillery shells with different messages on them. We'll figure it out. Apple Pay, I wouldn't know how to do Apple Pay. I don't even know how you do that. It's got to be PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. I know crowdfunding. We talked about crowdfunding. We think that GoFundMe, actually somebody even Googled, GoFundMe would not be very happy about us. You're not allowed to raise money for foreign, for sort of the military at all, it seems. So hello, Oya, in Kiev. Happy Independence. Well, happy Independence Day, I guess, yesterday for you now. Still today for us. All right, guys, let me jump to the questions here. But yeah, if you guys can give, I would appreciate that. I want to get as much as we can, and we'll buy as many artillery shells. And if we get enough, we're getting our name on that howitzer. I think that would be the most hilarious thing ever. All right, Q&A. By Putin bypassing his generals, do you think the chance of a military revolt increases? Huh, that's interesting. I don't know. Only because I think his generals at the same time are worried. If you're the defense minister, you're also very worried. If Putin is going around you, it means he has no confidence in you. Does that mean you're going to die sometime soon? Maybe. And the same thing for the chief of the general staff, or whatever they call him, the top military, uniform military official. I mean, it could. Now, having said that, if you're already on the outs with him and he doesn't trust you, do you get together? Does the defense minister get together with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, so to speak, as we call it in America, and together try to do something to oust Putin? Maybe. So, I mean, there is that risk of them saying, well, now what do we have to lose? He's going to probably kill us anyway. So, maybe. I mean, maybe. What else we got here? What do you make of the fact? What do you make of the fact that Russia intimated pulling out of the grain deal today in the UN? I didn't see that, but I mean, I'm not surprised. Look, I don't quite understand why Russia even has done the grain deal that it's done. Remember that Russia, Ukraine, Turkey got together with the United Nations and brokered a deal between Russia and Ukraine to permit Ukraine to begin exporting, grain again from the southern port of Odessa and another port nearby. I forget which. I think it's the port that makes me think it sounds like, with the funny name that I always make fun of when I see the name. But it's two ports in southern Ukraine. And I've been surprised that Putin even agreed to it, because Putin was trying to put pressure on, I'm not playing with you right now. My God, my dog wants to play. This is too funny. All right, here. Yeah. Bah! She's sitting here and going, I heard the whine. It was the, except that I can't, you want to come here? Come on up. I can't do this right now. God, I'm going to show you guys because you can at least see this. This is Sasha down there with the ball. Yeah. No. Now she's making growling noises at me. No, we're done in 20 minutes. 15 minutes. We can play then. In any case, so I've been a little surprised that Putin even had agreed to it because he wanted to put pressure on Africa. Not on Africa, excuse me. He wanted to starve the Middle East and North Africa in order to put pressure on Europe, that these countries would start to have famine or worse famine. People would leave. They would go to Europe as refugees, and it would cause another massive refugee crisis in Europe, which he knows would cause political upheaval. So I didn't quite understand why it was that Putin thought, he was going to agree to this. So I'm not surprised that now he's possibly backing out. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, back out. I mean, he doesn't care about people starving, and it's part of his political ploy. And that's no news on the show trial. That's a really good question. Let me look at, they had talked. So basically there was concern. Thank you, Bonnie, for those. There was concern today that, over $3 sending as family. Oh, it's Canada. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, Canada. Sorry. I'm not sure. Maybe if the other apps, I don't know what to tell you. There was concern among the Ukrainians that Putin was going to start a show trial today of the Azov military folks who were the defenders at the Azovstal steel plant, right? The Russians got them. These are the guys who the Russians blew up, who the Russians sort of blew up 50 of them, 120 of them, but killed like 50. Killed like 50 in the prison out east. And they've got another, 1,000 plus of these guys. And they were going to do show trials. They were going to do basically not fake, but trials of them to basically condemn them to death. And they were going to do it today. And I saw nothing in the news about it. Let me look, Annette, and just see. I'll do Azov show trials. Because that was the concern, but there was no, 2 days ago, Ukraine warns. A day ago, Rights Office very concerned. No. UN Rights Office very concerned about planned trials. No. So there's no news. It looks like, at least at this point, maybe they didn't do it today. At least not yet. But no. Nope. So nothing yet on that. What else we got? Hang on. Let me pull up another TikTok question here. TikTok Q&A. I always get headaches when I come here. Ugh. I don't know why. Like, I stick with the same coffee brand, so I don't get coffee headaches. But once again, headaches. What do you do? All right. The grain deal. That was interesting. I've not heard that. What do you think the reason is for Russia not bombing government buildings in Kiev in the beginning of the war? That's kind of a mystery to me. And frankly, still not bombing them today, right? So Russia at the beginning of the war and throughout the war has really not bombed like the Ukrainian, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of the Interior, the president's residence or the president's office. Thank you, Bonnie. All these kind of things. They didn't bomb them. And it's kind of weird because you've got like in Kharkiv, the second largest city, the Ukrainians have been just bombing left and right. The Russians have been bombing left and right. So I'm not really sure why. At least at the beginning of the war, there was some thought that possibly the Russians, since they thought they were going to take over Ukraine in 3 days, that maybe at the beginning of the war, the Russians, wanted to leave Kiev pristine, right? No bombs going off, no federal buildings blown up, so that when they put their puppet in charge, they would be able to say, look, nothing's changed. The city's fine. We just have a new government that now actually cares about you. The only thing is, since after day 3, it became obvious that wasn't going to happen, why haven't they yet bombed Ukrainian government ministries in Kiev? And I don't know. Now, one thing I will say, it didn't hit me until now. Did the U.S. threaten them? I mean, did Biden say, look, we're staying out of the war, but I'm telling you one thing, if you blow up any, Ukrainian, I don't know why he would say this, but I just can't figure out. Yeah, but I don't know. Somebody's saying it's because of foreign diplomats, but we bombed Serbia. We bombed Belgrade. and frankly blew up the Chinese embassy by accident or whatever it was. So that really isn't a reason not to bomb. That there's foreign diplomats there. I don't really know. It still is a conundrum to me. And I mean, it could be Biden or NATO said, look, you do that, and we're giving them all the weapons that you wish we didn't give him. But I'm not quite sure why would that be the red line? Bombing like federal buildings. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm with you. It really doesn't make sense. And the thing is, what's interesting is it's not anything that I've seen reported on since, which is weird too. It's just like nobody in the media or defense folks have sort of said, why aren't they doing that? I mean, they're bombing everything else, I'm almost finishing my water here. My voice is much better. My throat's a little dry, but my voice is much better, I'm happy to say. Well, I mean, they might kill local and foreign diplomats, but again, we blew up the Chinese embassy and there wasn't a war, and the Russians have cruise. No, that's a possibility. It's possible that, close to these ministries, you've got too many other foreign embassies, maybe, so that there's no way to actually blow up the Ministry of the Interior or the Ministry of Defense or the Foreign Ministry without blowing up the nearby Swedish embassy or whatever. I mean, maybe that's it. I don't know. How long can the stalemate go on? It could go on for a long time. I mean, look, in part, it's going to depend on whether Ukraine keeps getting our support, our collective support, right? I mean, that's going to be a big deal for determining if Ukraine can keep fighting. The Russians are kind of in a similar situation. I mean, they're going to be able to dig in, but it's not clear the Russians can keep going forward, and to what degree are the Ukrainians able to get any of their land back? Are they able to, starting with maybe Kherson, are they able to get back the city and the province in the next few months? But I mean, this could go on. Look, the Soviet war in Afghanistan went on 10 years. The U.S. war in Iraq and Afghanistan went on 20 years-ish, So, I mean, there's no reason this will just end. It could just go on. So, Irish Embassy reopened this week. I did see that. Sorry, I didn't mention it, but I did see that. That was good news. The thing is, Nick is asking if would it trigger Article 5 of the NATO Charter if the Russians accidentally blew up a foreign building, a foreign embassy in Ukraine. It would if it was intentional. If it's by accident, no. If it's intentional, yes, because accidents are accidents, right? But it's the difference between murder and not murder, in essence, right? If we had proof that the Russians said, let's blow up the American embassy and kill a lot of Americans, that would be an act of war, yes. But you've got to get that proof. And, I just think the Russians would be idiots to do it on purpose at this point. They're losing. I mean, or at best, they're tied, right? At best, they're tied with Ukraine, but they're not winning anymore. They can't afford to bring NATO in as well. Then they'll really lose at this point. Because if NATO comes in, then we're using all those F-16s Russia's afraid of. Then we're not just using the current HIMARS, we're using the HIMARS that have the 300-mile range and not just the 40-mile range or 60-mile range, So whole other bunch of bad coming Russia's way if NATO gets involved. So there's no way in hell they want us to get involved, even though they threaten it. I know Russia's are they suing or what? I see Gertz is saying, what do you think about Russia suing Latvia for removing the Soviet monument? Should Latvia be ready for cyber attacks? I didn't see suing. I saw them getting very upset. Actually, I saw a wonderful video. Hold on a second. There's a wonderful video I grabbed. I was going to do a TikTok and I forgot about it. Hold on. It's a quick little 8-second click. This is Riga, Latvia. This is the Soviet monument in Riga from 1985, glorifying the Red Army, and it's finally coming down. 1985, Riga, Latvia was still part of the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union, thank you, Alan, that was sweet of you. The Soviet Union existed until 1991. Okay, so 1985, still part of the Soviet Union. The main statue fell this morning at 9 a.m. This was today. I'm going to show you the video. 19 aggressive Russians protesting the removal of the monument put up by the occupiers were arrested by the Latvian police. So that's kind of wild. So, sorry, here you guys go. You can watch her. She looks like one of those big winged victory Russia blah blah. It's an animated GIF. It should. Oh, come on, animated GIF. Ah. Oh, I've got to hit play. Duh. There you go. I'll show you guys too. So here you go. Oop, do I have to hit it again? Yes. So that's her falling down. It is interesting because I was watching, Zelensky gave a really impassioned speech today. I'm in front of some beautiful monument and beautiful government, actually it was a hotel. It wasn't even a government building. It was a hotel. And it's interesting because it looked very Soviet. And it's funny how that kind of architecture and art and everything, permeated no joke, it permeated the region because they were part of the Soviet Union. But it still was interesting looking at it because that hotel just reeked of Soviet era hotel. The kind of coming up big here and then the big thing in the middle. Anyway, we got a couple more minutes, folks. What else we got question-wise? Go home statue, you're drunk. Yeah, exactly. Franny, people keep asking that about China and North. I don't get it. I don't get why people think we're going to war with China. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I just don't. I don't think it's in China's interest. I think, yawning. I think China has watched what's happens with Ukraine and has learned that NATO is very happy to stand up for our allies, that we will not only support them militarily to a big degree, but also European Union and NATO will put massive economic sanctions as well. And that's not the kind of stuff China wants and can tolerate. So I don't think so. I just don't. I think, we don't want war with China, but I don't think China wants war with us either. Yeah, sorry for the yawn. Yeah, let me do the recap. That's a good idea. Make sure I do have my notes here. Let me do the since we're getting close to time and because my voice is getting much better, I'm still keeping it to an hour so we can play it safe. So it's Independence Day and the 6-month anniversary of the war. I talked about how Putin's goals have really been sort of decimated and turned on its head by this war. Putin's caused NATO to expand to 2 new members. He's pushed Ukraine into the arms of NATO. He has made Ukraine more anti-Russian than it ever was. He got NATO to arm Ukraine. He has reinvigorated NATO and the EU, given us an even greater purpose for why we exist. Oh, one point I forgot to mention, he united the U.S. I mean, after Trump, we were pretty divided, and we're still pretty divided. But Ukraine gave us this point of unification that we hadn't had in years. COVID didn't do it. Ukraine did. So he gave us that too. He got America more involved again in foreign policy and, again, policing the world, so to speak. And he emasculated Russia as a world power. He showed the world that Russia's military isn't that good. These are bad things. Boris Johnson, British Prime Minister, visited Kiev today on Independence Day, announced a weapons package. The Russians attacked a train station in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, killing at least 15 people. The Washington Post says on February 24th, Russia asked Ukraine to surrender, and Ukraine's defense minister responded that he was ready to accept Russia's surrender. The Russian defense minister says the pace of the war has slowed, that Russia isn't doing as well because Russia doesn't want to harm civilians. Russian collaborator was killed by a car bomb in Zaporizhia. And in recent days, there have also been high-profile attempts to kill Russian proxy leaders in Mariupol, Melitopol, and Kherson, 3 of the largest cities now under Russian occupation. Another ammunition depot is on fire in Russian Belgorod. President Erdogan of Turkey, who tends to be a strong ally of Putin, in addition to a NATO member, said today that Crimea I'm yawning at you guys. Sorry. I didn't even have an allergy pill. That's because I had my nap. Said today that Crimea must be returned to Ukraine. The U.S. aid package of $3 billion with the B dollars was detailed, including a lot of artillery ammunition, counterattack radars, and some really important surface-to-air missiles from Norway. Here we go. Russia is preparing for referendums coming possibly in the matter of days or weeks in eastern Ukraine and southern Ukraine. These would be votes in order to fake votes, but in order to ratify that the Ukrainians want to join Russia. British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace says that 80,000 Russian troops have either been killed, injured, or deserted since the war began. So there's unconfirmed reports that Putin is now bypassing his Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff, who's their chairman of the Joint Chiefs, their top military official, top uniform military official. That Putin is now the guy in charge of coordinating the commanders in charge of southern Ukraine and the commander in charge of eastern Ukraine, the war going on of Russian troops, that Putin is coordinating it himself, which is insane and bad news for Russia. And finally, police officers in masks and camouflage on Wednesday stormed the home of Yevgeny Roizman, who committed the crime of referring to the war in Ukraine as the invasion of Ukraine. It is a crime punishable by 3 years in prison to simply refer to the invasion as an invasion. Just the simple word was enough. All right, guys, we're at 6:02 p.m. my time. I'm going to call it quits. As I said, we're still raising money for as much as we can raise, 5,000 if we can do it, to get our names emblazoned on the side of a Ukrainian howitzer. And they'll do a video for us, and the money will go to help support Ukrainian troops for supplies they need. We had raised about $1,800 before the show started, and that was since last night. I'm going to let it go a few more days. If we don't reach the 5,000, then I'll talk to you guys about it, and we'll buy several of the smaller options. You can, for example, we can get our names or our message emblazoned on an artillery shell, for example, with video and this kind of stuff. But I would love to get it on the side of the howitzer because I think that would be absolutely hilarious. And since the money is going to help Ukrainian troops anyway, why not? So do it, folks. You've got I will do one more time here on TikTok, on YouTube, etc. That's how you can give PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. For you all, you can go, actually, if any of the mods are there and want to copy it, I just posted it on YouTube. Otherwise, you can go to my profile on TikTok. There's the link, the Beacons link, as it's called, my URL. Click the link that says beacons.ai, and I will show you. It will do this. Yes, I'll talk about that cough in one quick second. So the Beacons link, okay, so it's that link there. That's, you see, https beacons.ai. You click it, and hang on, oops, it keeps showing an ad. So they're showing an ad, which is really annoying on TikTok. So when the ad comes up, click the arrow in the top left to go back. They're kind of ticking me off with this. Anyway, you go there, little welcome, and then let's help the soldiers in Ukraine. You can find my PayPal, my Venmo, and my Cash App there. And you can use for Canadians. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, so you can also use the tips function that is in my profile here. If you use the tips function in my TikTok profile, people were saying that might be a better way for Canadians to do it, so you avoid the PayPal fees or see tips there. So you can use that. Oh, the dog wants to go. You want to go in the closet? All right. I don't know why you want to go in that closet. And there we go. So if folks want to do that, I would appreciate it. I can see, we got 2 today. Oops. Hello. Oh my God, stop doing that. The dog is trying to create a bed in the closet, which she does whenever we go to Mom's house. Hey, enough. She's like digging through the carpet, trying to turn it into a bed. God. Yeah, this focus, it's funny. I didn't love it totally. It's okay. it's the, the galaxy or whatever, or not a galaxy, a nebula. But in person, I didn't love it as much as I could have. So I want to, I'm going to skip Discord today because I can feel my voice is much better, but it's tight today and it was getting dry when I was speaking. Sasha, what are you doing? She's just digging away. But yeah, my throat's been I can feel it's a little rough, so I don't want to mess with it today. So let's skip the Discord today. I mean, you guys can still go, obviously. But and I'll be back tomorrow, same time. And if my voice is behaving, we will do the Discord afterwards, okay? I know she loves to do it with blankets and things. Yeah, she likes to create beds, but it's just funny that she's going in the closet because she only does this at my mom's house. She loves that closet. It's the funniest. You coming out now? What do you think? No, she's just kind of hanging in there. Okay. Oh, the casket. Yeah, so very weird. So that woman who blew up in the car bomb that I'm convinced Putin killed her, she had an open casket funeral and looked perfect in the casket. And it was weird because she was blown up in a car bomb. It's just a little weird. It's a little weird. I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, the Dugina funeral. As far as moderating on TikTok, Syndicate is out today, but we can talk to him. But basically, we don't have a lot of moderators on TikTok. Hello. Oh, she's not dumb. Come on up here. Come here. Come on up. Come on up. I was gonna grab her to show her to you guys, and of course, she ran from me because she knew the dog is way too smart. She knew exactly what I was gonna do. You knew exactly what squeaking at me? Yeah. She knew I was gonna grab her. Well, now what? It's over there. Whatever. All right, guys. Any case, yeah, let's call it quits. But I will. We don't really need any moderators yet. He has all sorts of technical tricks on Discord to keep things sane. So, but yeah, I will. You know what I'll do? Assuming Mom isn't serving and there's no answer right now, I will at least go over to Discord and just kind of. I just don't want to write. I mean, I don't want to talk. I'm going to go over and see if I can go over without my mic. Maybe I'll do that for a couple minutes, okay? And see if we can just type a little bit or whatever. I'll try that at least. Discord.aravosis.com. I have no idea if I can jump in there without my mic being on. We shall see. Okay, guys. I'll see you. Maybe over the Discord. Otherwise, tomorrow. All right. Bye, all. Yeah, Sasha's saying hi to the ants. Exactly.